TMNT. I think it was issue. It was a Cerebrus issue. That was the first one that I picked up, and I fell in love with it. I fell in love with it at that point, and I mean it was right before the whole cartoon, movie thing jumped off. So I was glad I could still claim, I knew them when, as opposed to being accused of jumping on the bandwagon. So that was good.
Ralph ran the first Turtles convention, and I was set up next to all the Turtles guys. And before the show opened, all I did was question why they did black and white and why they did magazine format. And I just, boy, was I wrong.
Welcome to Thinking Critical, everybody. We are live. Gervain and Larry were talking a little bit about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle history. And we do have a great panel here for you today. By popular demand, we do have Gervain Dargan back on the channel. How you doing, Gervain?
I'm doing fine, and I want to thank everyone for all of the wonderful feedback. You guys sure know how to make, as they used to say back in the day, a girl feel welcome. But anyway.
Absolutely. And then also back by popular demand, I was actually told we need to get Gervain and Larry on the same panel together. I made it happen. Larry Comics, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me. Popular demand. I've never heard that before. That's the first time.
Well, I'll be honest. It was only one, but they were very adamant they wanted both of you.
Nice.
Also here with us, of course, is the curmudgeon of critical, Pele. How you doing, Pele?
Great. It's Saturday morning. It's the beginning of a new week tomorrow, and I'm pretty excited. There's a lot of buzzing going around the comic community, and a lot of heat that hasn't been applied in several months, and I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to happen. So, for the first time in a long time.
Yeah, it's about to get hot in here. Doc, what are you doing, buddy?
Sitting on my big fat ass and not doing very much. Well, I was doing a lot of yard work, but I'm kind of getting hyped for some new comics to come.
If you do so much work, how come your ass is still fat?
I have no fucking clue, man. I just eat. I eat really bad.
Oh, okay. All right.
And last but not least is the man that is about 50 billion times better at YouTube than I am. Perch, what's up, buddy?
That's not true in remotely. Hey, everybody, glad to be here, and we'll have a great show today. Got to talk to Larry and Gervain again, or not for the first. Sorry, I don't know what I'm saying. I'm glad to be here. Thanks.
So we are finally we knew that Ten of Swords coming out in September. We weren't exactly sure what Marvel was gonna do after their bi-weekly kind of release schedule, where it was comics, graphic novels. Didn't know how long that was gonna last. We do know that day is over, July 15th, and they are going back to business as usual. They're flooding the market. Empyre, their summer event, is now a weekly event, and we're going to get, I believe it's 9 issues of Empyre and associated titles, in July, and that's going to carry through August. So it feels like maybe Marvel is going back to some of their old tricks. Larry, I know you were excited for New Comic Book Day. You're excited to have more Marvel in the shop. While they did trim up some of the fat, it doesn't feel like they're kind of flooding the shelves again with Empyre and then moving into Ten of Swords.
It really doesn't. If you count the number of titles that are coming out weekly, it's really it's still way down. And I think they're just putting, with what they have available, their best foot forward. I mean, it's going to be Empyre in a consolidated time period. I think that might actually make, when there's economy of product on the shelf, I think that it might make the Empyre crossovers sell better. I'm curious to see how it works out.
I agree with you on one. I think there's way too many, but I do agree with you on one point that is a good one. I think that Empyre was going to struggle with sales. I think that it didn't have a lot of buzz going in. It just didn't. And the idea of releasing it weekly, I think, is probably gives them a better shot. I still don't think it's going to be a great seller for them, but I do think they will. There's at least a higher chance they'll keep some momentum. So I think that's a good point. Probably for them, that and all the other things they got going on, Ten of Swords and just whatever event will have started up before they're all done, before the 9 weeks are done. I don't know. It's just a lot of comics.
It is. I'm not a huge fan of releasing books weekly. I never have been. you're essentially you're asking both stores and consumers to essentially buy in a lot of product before they even decide if they're actually interested. Some of them, I mean, I understood it for like House of X, Powers of X. I guess I understand it whenever it's a crossover between multiple individual titles. I can understand that. But whenever it's the event book, I mean, especially with all the tie-ins and everything else, now you're asking people to essentially take 2 or 3 months worth of purchasing and combine it into, or condense it into like 2 or 3 like 1 month. And that's a lot. I think that's asking a lot from readers.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is asking a lot, and I've mostly what I've seen from my customers who are different than other customers. They're an odd lot, and I love them, but they're an odd lot. They just kind of look at it and they say, "This many, that short a period of time, what the hell?" They like roll their eyes, and it's $5 a pop for this every week. What in the world? So I think it may have been for one particular book, for one particular series that quickly, just sort of just dumping it out, I think it might be just a little too much too soon. So,
well, yeah, because
in hindsight, I can see their thought process. They're looking to build on what they had last summer with the House of X, Powers of X. That weekly shipping system was the most successful thing from Marvel I had in the store last year. So they're hoping that Empyre can duplicate that. That's their thought process.
I understand.
But they'd already had momentum going into that.
Well, it's not even. It's not even really that. They had a book that people actually were clamoring for. They wanted to see Hickman X-Men. They don't care about Empyre. Like there's no groundswell of desire for
That's a good point.
And that's what made it successful. You needed a groundswell of customer interest. They're going to get the sales, I mean, from the stores, but the stores are the ones, again, you guys are the ones that are putting your finances on the line for this. They don't give a damn.
I think it's...
If I can, I'm going to piggyback with Doc on that one in terms of the momentum piece, because I'm struggling. I'm like looking at my computer. I'm struggling to remember the one shot that came out that basically was supposed to set the groundwork for this, where it's supposed to be like the most important death in the Marvel universe, that basically leads into Empyre. I can't remember the title of it, but I do remember this. It was the one book it was the one book that I walked back into my comic shop and I said, "Can I get my money back?" It was horrible. It was terrible. It did nothing to build excitement for this event. It did nothing to build momentum for it. I agree with Doc. I just don't think they may get the sales, but it's just because maybe there's nothing else coming out. But I just do not feel any excitement or concern about this series going forward.
I actually think if it wasn't Road you're thinking of Incoming #1.
Incoming. That's what it was.
Okay, yeah, that was really bad.
Yep.
That was to lead in everything.
Yeah, and think about
awful.
it, that was the end of the year. That was 6 months ago now, roughly, or 5 months ago. That was a long time ago to keep that momentum going. That's too long.
Yeah, in comics, that's like a decade.
Especially now.
There was so much anticipation for Hickman's X-Men. I mean, it was started like in February, and people were like foaming at the mouth. I'd have people coming in weekly just for information. What is Diamond updated something? What's the release schedule?
It was a beast.
Do you know who the team's going to be starting out? Do you know what mutants are going to be in this? I heard that Magneto's going to be an ally. What is it? And just all this stuff, and it was just this steamroll that started, this avalanche, and it just cascaded down the hill, and then they both titles launched. They exploded, and it was awesome. And this is just kind of flopped out on the floor like a half-dead fish, like that Faith No More music video, and you're just sitting there going, "Yep, that's a thing." Yep.
There's just too many. So I mean,
if it's a hit, weekly's great. If it's a flop, it's gonna be terrible. So they're going to sink or swim by their own hand. Let's see what they got. Marvel tentpole events. You know what I mean? They have to matter. Is it going to be Civil War or is it going to be, I don't know,
Civil War 2?
Civil War 2.
So, Perch, what's the word on this? We do have a question from one of the viewers. Will Empyre be returnable now that it's changed to a weekly book?
No.
We knew that retailers were getting deep discounts. They haven't budged on returnability?
No, there's no returnability here. And I mean, they're discounts. I don't want to look at discount in the face. That's not a thing. But I mean, they're deep discounts. I think is stretching it a little bit. They're discounts.
They reneged on that 15%. Everything.
Yeah.
If you get 55% off, and the 15%, that was 70% off, which was that's a deep discount. But they canceled everything. Everything that looked inviting to order at the 70% off is off the table. So that deep discount's gone.
Yeah, and it was a discount on top of your normal. I mean, when people are like deep discounts, this will save comic shops. It's like, I mean, deep. I mean, come on. But I guess it's all in the eye of the beholder. But no returnability here.
So, Perch, one of the issues that we hear about, one of the concerns even about House of X Powers of 10 is when you have a weekly comic, we have FOC. How many issues of Empyre are comic shops are going to be on the hook for ordering before they even know how many people are going to buy the first issue?
Oh, that's a good question. I think I would probably now I'll have to do some math. I'm sorry. I now have to go look at it. I think it's going to be at least 5 or 6 issues.
I think it'll probably be almost the whole.
Yeah, almost the whole run.
And the series. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. It is the 6-issue event, is it not, or is it 8?
I thought it was 8.
6.
Got it. I mean, this is what happens when
I don't know.
We have no comics.
Yeah, you're going to be at FOC on probably the last issue by the time the first issue actually gets on your shelf.
I think the window will be a little tighter, but I think that's right. I think basically the last 2 issues you'll have some options on. I think I'll down do some math here. We'll figure it out together. But it's I think Marvel's trying to get it out the door because they have Avengers bigger event that they're leading toward in the fall. I think that the reason they're going weekly is simply that they do not want 5 of them all at the same time. Or they might as well just start canceling the regular comics and just do nothing but events. Just start publishing events and be done with it. Sometimes it feels like that's what they want to do anyway.
It does, doesn't it?
I think that Marvel tentpole events are almost a no risk for retailers if they're in for a penny, in for a pound. If they order equal amounts across the series, they always end up selling as sets. The crossovers are what will be very risky.
I don't know.
I could even
War of the
sell
Realms.
sets.
I did that with War of the Realms, and I've still got whole sets in my boxes. So, it just never sold. And I think what we finally ended up doing is just bundling them all together as complete sets and selling them for like 50% or 60% of cover. And
that's what I mean. I mean, you'll always be able to sell. You'll always be able to get your money back on a Marvel event set.
I think that historically has been true. I remember the first time that didn't happen for me was Fear Itself, and that one was a struggle. And even with Stuart on our art, War of the Realms was a tough one for a lot of people. I know Secret Empire was very tough for a lot of people. But I mean, then you have stuff like Absolute Carnage, which absolutely works as a set. I mean, that Absolute Carnage is a very safe purchase for a shop. You're going to make your money back on that one. But it's no longer a sure thing. I think what retailers do now is they kind of look to see which are going to be the actual tentpole events, meaning the big ones. Iron Man 2020, that's not a tentpole event for Marvel. Empyre, is it? Probably not. Ten of Swords, yeah. I think that people feel it's fairly confident. I think that's how you now have to start looking at their events. They're just not all created equal anymore. By the way, it's 6 issues. Yes, sorry for everybody. I should have known that. And it's the last. Basically, FOC will get you that last issue, number 6. So not a lot.
So at that point, you might as well just why even bother adjusting your order down?
Yeah, you
Well,
just
there's also like 16 tie-ins that you'll have had to buy before then.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Like, it's not like they're reducing the. I mean, maybe they're going to knock off some of the tie-ins, but if they're still, you're expecting readers to buy 6 issues of a main series and 15, 18 tie-ins in 6 weeks. Yeah, no, they're just not going to do it. They're going to start.
Let's see if it's good first. Who knows?
Yeah.
That's
Maybe
the
it's
problem.
Civil
You
War.
won't know if it's
Well,
good.
being
first.
good is
It's co-written.
being good
so
is great.
What could go
but
wrong there?
People are poor. People are broke. I
Dan
mean,
Slott and
their Trump
Alan
bucks, their
Ewing.
Trump bucks ran out, and they still haven't been called back to work. And they can either buy food or they can buy comic books. And I just don't know if this is really the right time to dump out a huge series like this.
So, Larry, you had an interesting take on that as far as your customers go. Like, you were finding that maybe your customer base had survived a lot of the issues that are going on a little bit better than maybe some other retailer markets, just because they had more secure jobs and things like that. Is that what you were saying?
I don't remember that, but
That was you.
my customer base is either, what I'm seeing is either feast or famine. I've got people who have either lost their jobs and have nothing, or people who are overworked because they're in an industry that they're working 80 hours a week. It doesn't seem to be a middle ground.
I literally just stayed the same. Nothing has changed for me.
Yeah, but you were a whale before, Doc.
Yeah, but I mean, literally, like
you're talking about being overworked.
income-wise, income-wise, nothing has changed for me. So I know that I am the exception to this. So I'm trying to put myself in the position of people that are either that are probably, there's a lot of people that are really stuck right now, and they're going to be, it's going to be hard for them to justify buying, a comic, much less.
I saw
25.
all my subscribers this week when I hand delivered all the books this week or shipped and spoke to people. I saw a hunger and desire for new books. People were so excited. So, but I've got a long way to go before I find that bottom. People were psyched.
Is your zip code Bel Air?
No.
No, I'm just kidding. But no, what I'm seeing is that you've got the collectors, you've got the people that are well-heeled retirees, people that have a lot of disposable income that's that's automatically they have trust funds or they have investment portfolios that supply money, and they're buying a lot of collectible comics. They're buying like vintage comics, like
back
as fast
issues
as
are
I can get them
so
available.
big right now.
But vintage comics are selling like crazy. Anything that I can get a hold of that's even barely somewhat reasonably priced, that just have some type of have some type of value, just fly out the door.
Key issues.
But here's the deal, though. On new comics, the people that are the new comics buyers, I've seen very, very few of them making. I've seen them, but I've not seen them making big purchases. And it's like, hey, what's going on? Are you guys doing okay? He goes, yeah, I'm thinking about selling half of my collection. I'm thinking about selling my collection. I think and that I'm getting more than what's coming out now. So we're in a financially a kind of strained area here. Appalachia is poor, we're rural, and right now people are hurting, and the welfare rolls and the EBT rolls are skyrocketing, and the people that do have money aren't afraid to spend it, but most of the people though just don't have money, and I'm really concerned about launching a big event into that, because one, I'm going to get stuck with books, but that's the least concern. The second biggest concern is I don't want my customers making bad decisions buying into 50 books into a month, and end up having their finances strained by the end of the month. And it's like, why worry about adults? Well, I worry about my customers. They're my friends. But going into this, we're going to have to accept that some areas, not all, some areas of the country are just really getting blasted right now, and they're not going to have the money to buy new comics. So you're going to have a lot of people are going to have to adjust their sights downward as far as this recovery and how long it's going to take. I think that Perch made an incredible observation, many weeks ago, when he said this is going to take years to recover from, and I'm thinking fully recover from it's going to take a decade. Because you can't just shut off the huge machine that is the United States and just ramp it back up again at a moment's notice. It just doesn't work that way. So,
in fairness, though, I have regained almost all of the losses that I had in the market.
Yeah, that's actually been good. The rebound, as far as the market's concerned, has been really good. Yep. But most people aren't market people. They're what do I have in my wallet people. So.
I think people are chomping to be entertained. I think people are excited to get out, and I think that the comic industry is going to shock you. I'm optimistic, and I think that it's going to be I hope faster rebound than you all think. So let's see how that goes.
But I just like to speak with Pelé talking about in terms of the market piece, with Doc about the market piece. But the market piece back in the Great Recession, when that happened in 2008, they planned for that. So when you look at what actually got rolled out, a lot of that was based on legislation they had put after they learned from mistakes the last time to not let Congress get involved and how they fund the banks and the financial institutions. So that's why you're seeing the market recover so well in the face of all this. But to Pele's point, for the in the wallet people, some of us, and I count myself, my family's one of them, still haven't recovered from the Great Recession. We were just about to get back on our feet this year. And now here comes this one here. And a lot of this has been based on whether you're an essential worker or not. So I serve on a board of a Christian private school. And one of the ways in which we can count ourselves blessed, if you will, is that most of our parents are essential workers. So we haven't really seen a dip or loss of income during that time. So I think Larry is right. People are hungry to get back out there. They're hungry to re-engage with their hobbies. But at this point, we just have to see how all of it shakes out. We just really don't know. I mean, Perch made another great observation that, we're looking at we could possibly lose 25% of the stores in the direct market. And, what does that mean? Where do those customers go? So there's just a lot of uncertainty, a lot of unknowns. But I just like to pose a question to all those about in terms of just Empyre, in terms of, is there such a thing as event fatigue with readers? Are they getting tired of constantly supporting these events that are coming through one after another? I might have been game for Empyre, but incoming was just so that I'm just like, guys, like maybe take a break from it. After a while, doesn't it get stale or it's just not unique anymore? Are any of you guys experiencing that, hearing that?
Incoming was 0.1. It was a sampler for the year. It wasn't incoming wasn't an event, and the last two Marvel events that I recall were Absolute Carnage and House of X, Powers of X, and there was no event fatigue. People wanted more, so I can see Marvel's strategy with weekly on Empyre. If it's good, it's going to be gangbusters. If it's bad, we'll be selling discount sets till the end of time.
Like I'm mostly with Larry when it comes to the rebound. I think we're going to rebound pretty quickly, but I do think that it requires companies like Marvel to not immediately try to get back onto the schedule that they were set on a year ago, because right now what it seems
they're
like
not.
Well, no, they are.
They're dribbling stuff out. This week there's 5 books.
Yes, I understand that, but But then whenever they get into their events, they're cutting the time.
That's 6 weeks from now. That's July 15th. They're not forcing it all down our throat. They're baby stepping. This week we get Carnage, we get Venom, and a couple other books.
I think the baby steps have to go long. My point is, I think the baby steps have to go longer.
No, people are chomping at the bit for Marvels. Last week people were pissed there were no Marvels.
Yeah, but then you don't have to get to double speed, which is what they're doing with the events. They're double speeding with release. They're cutting the release window.
They cut all their fat. They cut all their slop, and they're only giving you the meat of their publication schedule. From their perspective, Empyre is their meat. Their co-written title is the big tentpole for the summer. So they're giving it to us in a nice, tight little package.
Okay, they're doing that, but they're still putting out the same 49 total tie-ins.
Yeah, I don't.
In 6 weeks instead of 12. That's my point. You're now asking a $40 investment per week instead of a $20 investment per week out of the consumers. Whenever they're still just they're double, like they're stopping right now. They're dribbling out now, and then they're going to double speed, and then they're going back.
Wouldn't you say that crossovers in titles in main tentpole series are sketchy since Crisis? I mean, you don't have to feel obliged to buy every single crossover to every event. I mean, I recommend people, if you read Hulk and it crosses over, read it. I mean, you don't need those to understand the main series.
Crossovers never. I mean, no matter what people say, and Marvel is worse at this than DC, but everybody does it. It's you don't have to read all the issues; just read the ones you want. They'll say that, but on the other hand, the publisher absolutely wants you to read every title. They do try, but as a reader, actually trying to digest the story, they rarely matter. The crossovers rarely matter to understanding the core story. Oh, it's War of the Realms. If you missed every single crossover, it did not matter. You did not need to know what those were. Do they enhance the story? I mean, sure, if you're in love with the story, then it does. But it is, I mean, yeah. There's a lot of retailers up here. I spent a wonderful, day on Tuesday kind of breaking curfew.
You're the best.
What I should
Thank
do.
you. Good luck.
Talking to another retailer and working with people, but
Thank you.
it was look. I don't know that fans are itching to get back to comics. They absolutely are. They don't all have cash. I do think this recovery is going to take a very long time, but I also don't think it's going to be dramatic and death for a while. But look, I think Marvel, it's a lot of content out, and whether people think it's their core titles or not their core titles, when you put a stack of comics on that at the register and it's $100 for a week, that's going to hit some people right in the face, whether they are happy to be back in the comics or not. And right now, Empyre, I threw it up there. Wes put it up on the screen. Empyre is going to be over $250 if you go all in. No, I don't know anyone who will. But that's a high price tag.
I do.
Or it's $20 if you buy all 6 issues and you get a discount from your comic shop. I mean, to get the Marvel crossover event of the quarter, or they seem to be quarterly now. I mean, it's $20.
No, I understand what you're saying, and I'm not trying to be Mr. Negative guy, but Marvel, they are heavily. I mean, there's a reason why they're throwing the Empyre badge on this stuff. Why they are interrupting Fantastic Four, Captain Marvel, and X-Men with this in their core run, not in a sub in a limited series run, in their core run. They want you to buy all those books. They're not wanting you to come into the store and just spend $20 on Empyre. They want you to spend $250. And you customers are going to decide for themselves. It just is. It is a little obnoxious for retailers and for customers to say, "All right, here's we're going to take your money for Iron Man 2020. We're going to take your money over here for Empyre. We're going to take your money over here for Ten of Swords." It's a lot. And
but how is this different than any event since the dawn of time?
They're all coming with the same time.
They're coming in during a recession.
Usual.
They're coming
in the middle of a deep depression.
Yeah, they're coming at the same time. They're coming in a period where the industry just went through a heart attack, shock of being closed for 2 to 3 months. Shops are still opening up. That's what's different. It's just,
well, what do you guys think is that? Okay, they've got to. What's the answer to this? You're saying you don't want all the Marvel product. What's the?
Huh?
What's
no?
I'm saying
no.
You're saying
instead of every week, every 2 weeks.
I'm saying
every
2 weeks. That's what I'm saying. I think.
Would every 2 weeks have worked for House of X, Powers of X? What if that was good?
No,
yeah,
totally. I think it would have worked.
Empyre was designed to be every 2 weeks, not every week. That was the point.
How do we know they haven't tweaked it?
I think we're
because they haven't been working.
No, they haven't.
Nobody's been working.
They've already been published. I think we may all be arguing some slightly different points here. I mean, mine is it's a lot of events, and comics in one moment. And they keep in mind, we're talking comics in general. So you also got Death Metal here as well. Death Metal is obviously not Marvel's, but it's a lot of content all at once. And I think the interest, if we're talking about events from Marvel, if Empyre had a ton of buzz, people were pissed that the shutdown happened 1 week before Empyre was supposed to come out because people were looking forward to that event so much. That wasn't the case. Iron Man 2020 was not doing terribly well as an event. So it's not like these are all House of X Powers of 10 level excitement and interest. It was tepid coming in. And and we're going to get multiple tepid events all at once, and we're going to get Ten of Swords, and we're going to get Death Metal. It's a lot for customers to consume. Now, by the way, I want you to be right. I want your view to be the absolute right one, because as a retailer, I know for fans, it would be awesome if all these things sold and there's just excitement. That'd be the happiest day the comic industry would recover and bounce back. I just think it's squeezing quite a bit.
I admit, there seems to be 1/3 of the interest for Empyre that there is for Death Metal in my store. Death Metal interest is through the roof, and Joker War. I mean,
yeah,
it's going to be the summer of DC right now, is what it looks like.
And I just like with House of X and Powers of 10, just from a consumer perspective, I just remember two things. One, it was a lot more focused on just those two titles. So if there were crossovers, I as a consumer just wasn't aware of it. And two, it was a little bit different because it was kind of like a return to form for X-Men. It was like I hadn't read X-Men in years at that point, but just getting a little bit of teasers and what it was about, and I think they did a really good job in promoting it. I was just interested in getting back into that book. And then once you read the first 1, 2, or 3, it was like, oh man, this is a whole new take on the book. It definitely got them back into the larger Marvel Universe proper. I just think in terms of House of X and Powers of 10 just did a much better job of generating excitement and awareness. And in terms of me being able to support it financially, I didn't have a problem dropping the $60 to follow that particular event. $250 for
now,
Empyre.
let me ask you a question. After it ended, did you support when they dumped all the lesser quality X titles? Did you continue to support it after?
No. So I support.
That's a great mechanic for Empyre.
I supported the X-Men. I support X-Men, the main title. Excalibur, even though it has its issues, because I like Marcus Toe, and only recently started reading I can't remember the name of it right now, but basically I definitely jumped on board for the main title of X-Men. In terms of the other 6 titles that came out, I just picked and choose based on whether it was the concept or the artist. But yeah,
I didn't pick it up. Empyre, then that's Empyre in a nutshell.
No. Dawn of X happened after House of X Powers of 10. If you had House of X Powers of 10 going on for 12 issues at the same time Dawn of X releasing, that would be infuriating.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it would have.
A little different. Sorry.
Because even with those waves that they were planning on and coming out with now, it was just like, bruh, I'm not looking to, and I think someone else made a point about this. I think it might have been Hibbs made a point about this. And maybe this is different for maybe this is different for other consumers. Maybe it's different depending on where you're in the country. I am not looking to support a line of X-Men comics. Okay, I haven't been wanting to do that since the mid '90s. I don't need a Starjammers title. I don't need this title. I don't need that title. I want an X-Men title, maybe a second title with a huge supporting cast that you can draw characters in for stories over many years. But this idea that you're gonna like force feed me like the Matrix every single idea at $4 or $5 a pop, that might be for some, but I ain't rolling. I'm not popping bottles like that at this point in life. And even if I were, I don't think I would spend my money like that. I'm not looking to support an X-Men line. No, I just wanted
at the end of House of X, Powers of X, people were ready to support an X-Men line. They just weren't ready to support that X-Men line with the Moneyball.
X-Men is up through the roof. Still, X-Men is much higher than it was with the previous Uncanny X-Men title.
Awful.
Yeah.
It was. I mean, we had people coming in to get into House of Powers of X, Hawks and Pox. We had people coming in that hadn't darkened the door of a comic book shop in 25, 30 years.
Yep.
I mean, they were like,
they loved it.
we want this. I heard this is incredible. Where is it? And now they're still buying X-Men. They're still buying X-Force. Some of them are buying some of the other titles, depending on, what characters they love.
Wolverine.
And the creative team behind them. Wolverine's big.
great.
So you've got about 4 or 5 core titles that came out of that are just for what most X-Men fans are must-see comics every single 2 weeks or month, and they bring their money. And if anything else, that's what the Hickman series did. So I just don't see that with Empyre.
Empyre is going to be a consistent creative team delivered weekly. The core Empyre series, I think it's going to sell great.
Yeah. But I think just to come back on
but I hope you're right.
Yeah, to come back on the X-Men point for a minute, is that if you're talking about X-Force Wolverine, those were all well-established titles or character brands, if you will, before the slump came and House of 10 and Powers of X came back. I mean, now, unless you guys are going to tell me Fallen Angels was doing well, because if that's the case, then point taken. But it's like to say Wolverine, I remember back, it started off in Marvel Comics Presents way back when, built up that audience, then launched into I think it was the Claremont Buscema title. And it was it has become Wolverine always was a brand established unto itself. But to say that that people were then all of a sudden interested in Excalibur and Fallen Angels and some of these other ones, I'm not convinced or sold on that part of it. So even when the next wave was coming out of the Hickman books, there were some people, at least in my circles, who were going like, no. It's just, I don't, I agree there's those 5 core titles. Wolverine definitely need a jump start, but there's always been a Wolverine audience that has spun out of the X-Men books. But somebody say to me that here's the X-Men line and there's like 20 titles at a time going, it's like, bro, unless every one of them are like my absolute fave artist, I'm not supporting that whole line. And maybe that's what the intention was. There's some books for people over here and some from over there. But my thing with X-Men, when I got out of X-Men way back when, it was like what I enjoyed about X-Men's one thing, New Mutants is another. Okay, maybe we get X-Force. But it was like you had a book that had this really large supporting cast built up over time, and I could go there and expect a really good story from that one title. And when it just started spiraling into like 50 different titles, it's just like it's almost the law of diminishing returns. It's like, okay, I only would see Juggernaut every 2 years when it means something. But now that he's a main character of the book, it's like, all right, okay, he's just not special anymore. But
they diluted the goodwill from the Hickman event by playing Moneyball and applying creative teams that nobody was clamoring for on books maybe people would have read. People were in love with Hickman, and they gave us, I don't know, C-level writers.
I was ready to support an entire line of X-Men books until I started getting the details of the creative teams, and I was like, what?
Yeah.
Well, this isn't adding up here.
Moneyball.
Here's what's
and
interesting,
then I went
though.
and got the books, and then once I was through two or three issues of them, I was like, I'm dropping all of this but X-Force and X-Men.
Yeah, I have had people that will come in though that get X-Men, get X-Force, get Wolverine. Wolverine's recent, but they'll get those core books, and then they'll see, oh, there's something going on over here in Fallen Angels, and they'll just get a one-off issue. They'll just grab it and they'll say, oh, I like this character. I like this. This looks interesting. Oh, I like this cover. They'll grab it. They don't subscribe to it. But they'll just grab it and they'll go to register with it. And they're not behind that series, but they'll pick up one-off issues here and there. And those people are a large portion of the Marvel reading base that are just picking up random issues. So
comic shops got to have comics.
But it's still like a third of what I would order for X-Force and X-Men. So it's still not big hitters. They're still not major titles, and I just question whether they should have really gone that direction at all. So
Yeah,
I
I agree with you.
The X-Men line, I mean, the plan was not a bad one. I think 6 titles coming out the gate is not a terrible idea. I think that, if you're going to appeal to different parts of the audience, it's okay. And I think, I did feel like there was at least some attempt to talk to different audiences. I think Hickman did have that plan. What Brian Hill was doing was very different from what Teeny Howard was doing. So in theory, it should appeal to different people and get different groups and grow that bubble. It's fine. I think stretching that to 8 once Wolverine was announced and Giant Size X-Men was announced, okay. But then when it starts to stretch to 10, 14 books a month, you're going too much. You've gone to the well just too many times. Too much. That's more than what both customers and retailers can consume in terms of being able to actually properly curate a line. I don't think the comparisons to Empyre though are the same at all. I mean, Empyre is an event. House of X Powers of 10 was clearly a lead up to a new line. Very, very different. Now, maybe, in fact, probably Empyre will have a couple brand new #1 issues that will spin out of this, because there always are. But it's not their attempt to make a new line. They're not making like a Hulkling universe coming out of Empyre. So, and also House of X Powers of 10 at the end of the day was 6 issues. Or sorry, 12 issues, 6 for each. Empyre, on the other hand, is 55 issues in their event running weekly. So there's a huge scale difference there. It's much different in terms of what they're doing, both in the event.
I don't think you can classify crossovers as the issues. Crossovers are crossovers. They're complementary issues
House
if
of
you
10
decide
Powers
to
of X
reward the
didn't
publisher.
have-
But they're issues still that the retailer is going to be ordering, putting on the shelf, and promoting. I mean, they're things to sell. It would be equivalent to saying, okay, well, House of X, Powers of 10, and all the Dawn of X titles all going on the shelf, meeting that entire bubble. Whereas this, we're saying 55 issues over the span of, 8 weeks?
Let's pretend it's FOC, fellas. How are you guys going to order Empyre? I'm going to tell you how I'm going to order it. I'm going to be very aggressive across the board on Empyre 1 through 6, so that I'll maintain at the end. I'll have sets to make. And I'm going to be very conservative on crossovers. I mean, how am I going to get burned on this?
I done what I'm going to do. I did because I remember I'm collecting boxes up and having to send them to people right now outside of a shop till things are open.
That's what I'm doing as well.
Yeah, so I ordered very light on Empyre. I did not have the advanced interest. I had very little advanced interest, and on the crossovers, I'm going to order strong on X-Men. And I'm going to order strong on the Empyre X-Men. There's 2 different X-Men crossovers going on here, and pretty light on everything else. By contrast, Death Metal, I'm getting 500 copies of that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's going to be a beast.
Yeah, so it's just they're just not the same. And we'll see. But Marvel's got to do. I mean, they got to do something. They're in a position, honestly, where with Empyre and these other things, either they were going to have to shotgun it out this way, or they're going to have to cancel it entirely, which they wouldn't do. It's already produced. Or they're going to have to just go digital with it and say forget it. And they're going to have to do something, because it's just like the train is moving, things are piling up. They need to get to the Revenge of Null, or whatever that storyline is going to be here in the fall. Mm-hmm. Spider-Man's going to have a different crossover with Mary Jane, and maybe not. Whatever's going to go on with the marriage there. And yet we have. I mean, the funny part is we're also going to have an X-Men event in the winter. Not 10 of Swords, another one. So, I mean, that's just, you mentioned an event a quarter. I mean, we're I think I counted up one point, and Marvel had 11 events on the table for 2020. I mean, just yikes, that's just a lot.
But their most successful items last year were events. Why wouldn't they duplicate with what they had success with?
Because this was Hickman events.
Sold.
Because they put a schedule together for 2020 and 2019. They still want to end that schedule at the exact same time, and they had 3 months where they didn't do business. That's the problem. You're now trying to squeeze.
They've cut out tons of stuff,
but they're still trying to put out 12. What did they really cut out? They maybe cut out Outlawed, maybe. Other than that, all the events are still happening. They're just that's not an event. It was a one shot or a mini series.
They didn't cut very much, honestly. I mean, they cut some, but not much. I mean, I think I could probably, during the next debate here, I'll go and I'll calculate it up, but it was not that many issues.
I'm going to go count it up.
They're trying to squeeze 12 months of events into 9 months. That's the problem.
Yeah, my ordering on this is what I was ordering as far as the main titles, X-Men, what I was ordering before the shutdown, I'm ordering that, same numbers, and on Empyre, I'm ordering 100 issues of each. That's it.
Yeah, that's great.
And
smart. You'll never get burned.
And I'm not sure because I don't have any heat on it. So, I could, we could eat 100 issues. I could just build them as sets, like I said, sell them for half price, at least get my cost back. And, at least there's that, but that's not setting the woods on fire. No. So it's, it's definitely not House of 10, it's definitely not House of X Powers of 10, where everything went insane. I well underordered the first few issues and was just clamoring to, I was hitting diamond like crazy going, I need 100 more. Wes remembers that, don't you, Wes? It's like, oh crap, I need to get 250 more issues of issue number 4. I need to get 150 more issues of number 3. What the hell am I going to do? And I'm calling up Graham Crackers. I'm calling up, Midtown, and saying, how many
can I get? But you also had
what kind of
Absolute Carnage going on at the exact same time.
At the same time. And
but you had Donny Cates, Ryan Stegman on one book, and you had Jonathan Hickman on the other book. And those are huge names. When you're looking at Empyre, it's Dan Slott. He hasn't had a great run. I know you're a bigger fan than I am, Larry. And Al Ewing, who certainly had a good run on Immortal Hulk, but it's down right now. And he's the one that did, Incoming and Marvel Comics 1000 that everyone kind of hated.
And people still have a sour taste in their mouth over Al Ewing, just basically shooting Immortal Hulk in the head, when it went from like a top 5 book to, it went from a top 5 book in my shop to it almost never sells. We went from selling 250 issues, 250 copies an issue down to 40. Because he changed the narrative and we're gonna say capitalism is bad and we're going to attack the roots of American democracy, and people go, I don't like this, and they just ended up putting it in the garbage.
If old Danny Slott has a anti-Trump narrative if he teams up with his buddy Al Ewing and Empyre, and they've got some little secret political message, they are just blowing their face off with that'll be funny to see.
But that's Dan Slott's way.
Oh yeah,
that's Dan Slott's way.
Again,
if 100%. Well, not always. Dan Slott
Ewing's way.
Gave us. Yeah.
But if you look at the 2019 events, you had you had 2 that were massively successful, and the other 2 big ones were giant flops. War of the Realms and Age of X-Man were giant flops.
War of the Realms actually kind of felt all right.
It did okay.
If you sum the whole year up last year, would anybody here consider Marvel's publishing last year a failure? I mean, they were still the largest. They're incredibly successful. I thought they improved their line tremendously last year.
But the industry rode to into the green based on Marvel's performance in the second half.
Yeah.
And it was
in spite of the stinkers like the last part of the War of the Realms and Incoming.
Yes.
It's not because of them.
Well, yeah.
Incoming is 0.1.
Yeah, but 2019, the first half of 2019 was when you got War of the Realms, when you got
Age of
X-Man, and they were giant flops. It wasn't until they actually got good creators with Donny Cates on Absolute Carnage and Hickman on X-Men versus the 2020 events, which are run by Tinny Howard on X of Swords.
Well, Hickman's on that one too.
Well, War of the Realms was Jason Aaron. I mean,
Jason.
Marvel thought they were putting their best foot forward. I mean, he wrote a stink bomb, but
that was disappointing.
Yep. I've never read anything by Jason Aaron that I actually thought was good. I don't understand everybody's opinion.
I thought his
not since God of Thunder.
Everyone likes the store run until the end.
Thor: God of Thunder was amazing, but that's it.
Take your word for it. I never read it. My point is, outside of that, he is all sizzle, no steak, and he always has been, in my opinion.
You've been talking to my wife.
Yeah, he's and so, and then you have a lineup of creators that is on par with what you had for the first half of 2019's, when you had what was her name? Seanan McGuire and Matthew Rosenberg and some other clown that I don't remember on X-Men, on their Age of X-Men nonsense, and on the Uncanny X-Men relaunch, and on the other Uncanny X-Men relaunch, and then Jason Aaron, who, look, the guy has a name, but he's never any good. Everybody's always disappointed in 99% of what he produces.
If they did War of the Realms,
you can't be saying that you've never read God of Thunder.
Again, 99%. I've never read anything that I've liked from him. I'm saying that there's probably 1% that I didn't, and that's fine.
Southern bastards.
But Cates and Hickman are on an entirely different level than Aaron, Howard,
But hold on.
Octavius, and all the
Hickman's
rest.
going to be on Ten of Swords, and Cates might be writing that Spider-Man
with
novel.
Trini Howard. But
I wouldn't compare
my
it to Jason Aaron and Tini Howard either.
Yeah.
This Conan the Barbarian was good for a while.
Yep.
Okay, but my point, they're still no better, because they're really no better. The events that are coming out right now, Al Ewing and Dan Slott are about the same quality as Jason Aaron. They occasionally put out something.
Let's say people buy a book based on artwork too. I would say that Jimmy Chung is a fantastic artist. If he illustrates this entire thing, they're going to get a check in the artwork column, right? I mean, comics are visual media. This is spectacular Marvel art. Everything that I want from Marvel art is Jimmy Chung. This is a big event artwork. So half of it right there is blockbuster artwork.
Jim Chung isn't illustrating this issue, this title.
Who is?
Valerio Schiti.
Yeah.
How did I have Jimmy Chung?
He's doing the covers.
I'm a dope. It's a Marvel cover dope. I hate when the cover don't match the drapes.
Yeah, he's doing the covers.
That
Now,
sucks.
by the way, I 100% agree with you. If he was doing the interiors, this thing sells much better.
Yeah, I'm a
There
dope.
you go. That's right.
But I will say this, as far as Dan Slott and Al Ewing goes, not that long ago, Immortal Hulk was probably the best comic in the entire industry. It was absolute must read. Now there was a hiccup here and there, and then it just fell off right leading up to 25. And also, Dan Slott ended his Spider-Man run on a really high note. A lot of people liked his Red Goblin story arc, and so he is capable of writing a good story, which we're not completely certain that Tini Howard is.
Okay, what's the best most co-written storyline? I can't think of a co-written storyline that's been a blockbuster. Co-written spells doom.
You have to go over to DC. I think Snyder has done some with Tinian. There's a couple. DC to pull it off a little bit better. Marvel seems to, the co-written thing is not a. I don't know.
Dark Knight's Metal had a lot of co-written stories, right?
Yeah. Yeah, DC seems to do better with co-written than Marvel, and I do not know. Well, I mean, I have some ideas, but I'm not sure exactly why.
And X of Swords is co-written too. But it's mostly, Hickman has kind of some of the outlines, but Tinny's the one that's really writing it. So
you don't know that. You were not there when it was written. You are implying things that you do not know, sir.
I'm implying that Jonathan Hickman had a gun to his head to even be in that room.
Well,
they're long established friends.
Yeah, I don't care. She's still terrible. This is the reason why he shouldn't be the EIC, because his ability to gauge talent is effing terrible.
There's a lot of thirsty guys at Marvel.
He discovered a lot of really great people.
Name one.
I like
Scotty Young.
I like this.
Scotty Young.
Yeah,
Scotty Young was.
I like.
Scotty Young was in Marvel a decade before Hickman even showed up.
Yeah.
He was there pre-Civil War.
I believe that CB looked at his portfolio first.
He did the
when
New Warriors.
when CB was the Marvel talent evaluator.
Yeah, but
I believe he discovered Scotty Young.
Scotty Young was on New Warriors pre-Civil War 1. So he's been at Marvel long before Hickman.
But CB was also the head of the talent scouting team.
I'm talking. That's why I'm talking about.
Oh, okay.
I'm talking about Hickman.
Oh, gotcha.
When
Thought you were
people
talking CB.
have suggested that he should be EIC, you know,
He doesn't even want to work at Marvel.
I
Doesn't
know.
he go on rants half the time?
He goes on rants, and he was their second choice because Remender turned them down.
I don't know if I believe that at all, to be honest.
They asked Remender to do the current relaunch, and he said no. So obviously Hickman had to have been asked afterwards, or else we would be getting Remender X-Men right now.
Yeah, with the background behind that, at least as far as we know, is that Remender was supposed to take over X-Men following his Uncanny Avengers run and Axis. But there was a lot of things going on at the time, a lot of politics, and some people were definitely out to get him, and he didn't feel like Marvel stood behind him during the whole Captain America, debacle with, I forget that character's name, anyway, the Falcon and the girl that he slept with. There's a whole drama around that. Anyway, we were
talking about Marvel and Chip Zdarsky, the Moon Knight's quote. Will you go back get to that?
Yeah, we will. So Remender left, and then there was a talk, at least, that Marvel reached back out to Remender with this last run, and Remender turned them down. But then, from what I understand, that he turned them down very, very flatly. And they always did kind of have an intention to want Hickman to come in and do this, but Hickman was being courted very aggressively by DC to take over Legion of Superheroes, and was very interested in doing that.
That would have been better.
Now
Bendis.
That did,
it's awful.
Now, what we don't know, and what I'd love to get some back, I'd love to just ask somebody about this, is once Bendis came into DC, the Hickman talk cooled very, very rapidly. Now, there's a lot of speculation that, the two of them, that was why, that Hickman doesn't like Bendis, or there's some drama there between them, but everybody says...
I like Hickman even more now.
Well, but if you talk to anybody in the industry, they will tell you, no, the two are good, they're friends, no, there's absolutely no bad blood or anything, but the timing was strange because Hickman was scheduled to come in. Bendis came in quickly first, and Hickman dropped off talks. He went back to Marvel. Marvel is now a Bendis free zone. He takes over X-Men. So I think there is more to that story than we know, but I'm just speculating at this point. Anyway, that's the background. Now I'm Mr. History. I'll shut up.
Anyway, yeah, you're right. I think there is something there between them, and I don't know if it's creative differences or if it's personal opinions, but they try to put on a good face in public, but I think there is something there. Moon Knight 101, why Marvel isn't pushing Chip Zdarsky is amazing to me. Me too, because I think that he should be an Amazing Spider-Man, and he should be doing like his own one-man show book for Amazing Spider-Man, like once every 5 issues. That's my opinion. But because the Spectacular Spider-Man when he was hitting on all cylinders was just amazing. It was fantastic, and great sellers, above and beyond what Spectacular Spider-Man would sell. So I love it. Fantastic Four, I think he has a special bond doing Spider-Man. Zdarsky really understands Spider-Man. He that's his character. He does such an incredible job. He understands the character. He understands Spider-Man's role in the Marvel Universe, and he just does it. He does it better than anybody else right now, in my opinion.
If I was a betting man, I would have bet that Ryan Ottley on Amazing Spider-Man would be selling a lot better than it is right now. That team just seems flat. I don't know if it's his inker. When you see Ottley's sketches of Spider-Man, on his social media feeds, they have so much energy, and when it gets printed, it's just kind of flat and cartoony, and it just isn't working. And we've got a mundane script, and Amazing Spider-Man sales are mundane. That title could use a shake-up, and Chip Zdarsky would be a great ongoing.
I don't even know if Marvel even does inkers anymore. I think they just kind of have the artists do their own inks real quick and then colorize them.
Well, back, I don't know if you guys remember this, but back about 15 years ago, when Kirkman was still at Marvel, there was a lot of talk of him and Ottley doing because they were supposed to take over Ultimate Spider-Man whenever Bendis was going to leave. But that's shortly before Kirkman got his partnership at Image and decided, nope, I'm And then but Kirkman just like straight up left Image because he had two big projects that were about to get going there. He was going to take over Ultimate Spider-Man, and then he was going to he was supposed to be doing that, I think it was a Kill Raven miniseries with Liefeld that just never happened.
I have a fun Kirkman story. I
Go
had
for it.
Robert up for a show, and I'd taken him out to dinner before the show, and I told him that, I said, Robert, you're going to be editor-in-chief of Marvel someday. And I think he quit the next week. So I was wrong.
But I'd just like to jump in for a minute, just in terms of, I had the pleasure of attending a seminar with Jim Shooter that went into basically writing and creating comics, and he said that the two most important things for a creator to be able to do is to have something to say and know how to say it. And I just feel like with this cornucopia of titles that come out from Marvel and DC, you just have way too many opportunities for creators to be on a book who don't have a clear vision for the book, don't have a feel for it. And it's almost like if you took every fill-in issue from a company's back catalog, it's just being put out there on a regular basis without there being any real drive or vision for a particular book. That's why I felt House of 10 and Powers of X was so successful, because there was a clear vision to it. There was a focus to it. It felt like somebody cared about the characters, knew the characters, and was writing on it. But it's like, it seems like people are being given a shot in the industry who basically aren't ready yet. They aren't ready yet. Now, I'm a wrestling fan. This comes up in wrestling all the time about guys jumping up from a developmental system from NXT, which is like their kind of, it'd be like a showcase in DC at one point, jumping up to the main roster. And all of these reasons for why they're just not ready for the big stage yet, whether it's from personal desire, they haven't figured out how the system works yet, or they just don't know their character, understand their role on the roster yet. But it just feels like there's just way too many creators who are basically being given shots to do this, and they're just not ready yet. Or
it's an editorial problem.
It's an editorial problem.
The editor is the guy who assembles the team. It's an editorial problem at Marvel. They definitely play. Maybe it's their budget. Maybe they have to play Moneyball. They have no money to put this team together to produce this book, so they've obviously got to go out and they've got to get newbies. But I agree that it seems like creative teams are coming out of nowhere. These people have done nothing in the past to merit being on a Marvel title.
Well, I think a lot of those people that had no place at Marvel, still right now have no place at Marvel because their pencils are still down. And hopefully they stay down and they can find wonderful, lucrative opportunities in other industries elsewhere. I wish them all the best. I hope that they are successful in life. I hope that they can make a ton of money doing something else. Maybe go and, write for, gambling magazine or something. I don't know.
Yeah, and I also think part of it, that's my problem with so many titles being pushed out by Marvel and DC is that it's just, if you had fewer titles, I mean, I understand for retailers, you have to maintain a certain amount of income, stuff like that coming in, but it would just, I think people would have to earn their spots more if there were only X amount of spots out there. And I might be wrong. I think sales would go up because money would start to go to the actual titles that were doing well. Like, I was a huge fan of Immortal Hulk in the beginning. It was an interesting take on the Hulk and the whole body horror thing. And it's like, but when Ewan went left field, right field, whatever you want to call it, and then you got up to issue 25, and I was like,
I think it was right field from the day one.
Yeah, I was like, what happened? It was like, what happened? But
everybody's kind of. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead. Yeah, I think I'm done.
Everybody kind of expects that Ewing is going to have a political slant, and that's great. That's fine, as long as the story's good, the art's good. Who cares? Nobody cares. But when he went, woo, wait, issue, a little bit before issue 25, everything started going creaking and everything started going off the rails, and then boom, he just couldn't hold it in anymore and just exploded. And I think the real turning point in that, where everybody was looking at me, customers looking at me, going, "Why is this girl lecturing the Hulk on he doesn't know how he doesnn't understand suffering? The Hulk doesn't understand suffering. He's in hell, being tormented by his darker half, and you're telling him how you've suffered? Oh, come on now."
And
Come
why
on.
did you pick her up and throw her into
Alex
the
Ross
sun?
has bought Al Ewing a year on that title. He's done the work of his career with those covers. I mean, those books are just beautiful.
Yeah. Yep. It's a draw. Yeah, it's a draw.
So we've talked a lot about Marvel kind of beginning to flood the shelf. Obviously, Larry disagrees a little bit.
I got to count it up. I don't think they're flooding them, guys.
I think they are with events.
Got to be more meticulous.
How's that? They certainly slimmed down the line, but it feels like they're going to be flooding the shelves with Empyre, and then with Ten of Swords. But Perch, it feels like DC's kind of doing the same thing. Joker War is going to be 17 issues in total, I believe. DC Dark Knight's Death Metal is going to be a little bit smaller. Obviously, there's only, I think, 3 tie-ins to that one, and then we're going right into the 3 Jokers. So, does it feel like they're taking a play from Marvel's book and doing more event series as well?
No, I don't think it's that big. I mean, Death Metal will have more than 3 issues. I mean, there's 3 issues that have been announced. We know that there's a whole batch behind that that are coming as well. So Death Metal will be a pretty big event. Joker War is probably the one that feels like a little bit poorly timed. Like, you've got these other things to focus on. I think Javane mentioned it earlier. It's like you got to think about your marketing dollars. Think about what you're promoting. Put your best foot forward. Don't put all your feet forward at once. It's going to be the law of diminishing returns. You're going to start to be unable to promote one event because you got 5 events that you got to deal with. And I think, comic book publishers do a poor job with marketing in general, just as a general statement. And so one way to fix that is don't do as many all simultaneously and just get a couple right. When they do get it right, they tend to do really well. But, House of X Powers of 10 was marketed really, really well. But you do get too many things going. I don't think the 3 Jokers, I mean, that's 3 issues. I got you. But Joker War feels like it's like, I don't know. If I was the kind of editor-in-chief and I was planning this stuff, I wouldn't be throwing that out right at this exact moment when you've got Death Metal, which will feature Evil Bruce Joker as kind of the main villain, I think, in part of this, or one of the main villains. I think the risk they have is that they're just going to burn out that character. And that feels very Marvel-like. Like we found something that kind of worked. Now let's do it 500 times. I think that's the comment you have up there. It feels like the excess here.
In fairness, when it comes to the marketing side, the comics industry gets the D students from marketing schools, because anybody that's a C student is working in tech, and anybody and like online advertising and marketing, and everyone that's an A and B student is working on Madison Avenue. So
Coca-Cola.
Yeah, they get the D students of the marketing world, and you get D student work. So,
from DC's perspective, pre-COVID, the Tinian Batman run was had the most momentum of any of their titles, and they are hitting the ground. They're Scott Snyder and Tinian Batman run. That's their 2 best things. They're hitting the ground running with. They're putting their best foot forward. What more could we ask of them?
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think it's not. And again, to put in perspective, if you just look issues to issues, and I know the comment came up earlier. I mean, Marvel. What's tripped a lot of people up is people heard that Marvel said they were cutting 1/3 of their line, but they weren't cutting 1/3 of their line. They were putting it on hold to COVID. A lot of the comics on that line included things like Empyre that now we have a release date for. So they didn't get cut; they just moved back. The actual cut books are pretty small, really, and many of them are just moving to digital. DC is they don't even have the same. I mean, it's a half or less of kind of these crossovers that Marvel is doing. So it's not in the same spectrum. I think that in general you have a potential issue with confusion of characters. I think that's what's going to come down to a DC. If you're doing big Joker War storyline, a lot of issues tied into that. You're doing Death Metal with a lot of issues tied into that. You've got a lot of, I know Death Metal is intended to be Wonder Woman centric, but still it's going to have a heavy Batman presence, heavy Batman Who Laughs presence over here, and the Joker over there. It's just a lot. I totally agree with putting your best foot forward. That run was doing great for DC before the pandemic. And I think, wanting to get back into that and keeping it rolling makes absolute sense. Just it's in many cases poor timing. I think Joker War really was going to hit and go through before Death Metal really got going, and now they're going to be overlapping each other. But all things considered, that's probably not the biggest slam of comics in somebody's box.
And I just want to, I'm going to back Larry up here for a minute in terms of just the sales aspect.
Larry up. Come on.
Because in video games, there's this same sort of dilemma with microtransactions and loot boxes. So everybody you kind of talk to anecdotally complains about it, but they keep making money. They keep making money. So there's a guy, I think it's Rich from Tech Review USA, who did a great video on this. It says, look, if you guys are honestly saying you don't like microtransactions and loot boxes, you can't stand what it does to the dynamics of the game, how it allows people who aren't that good to compete and so on and so forth, stop buying them. If you stop buying them, then they will stop producing them. But if now, to Larry's point, if Empyre comes out and it does gangbusters or whatever it is, then the event fatigue theory, rightfully so, goes out the window. Because we all keep buying them. So
you're absolutely right. The one thing I get frustrated with these videos is people are like, oh, why is Marvel forcing these events on people? Because people buy them. That's why. Are they doing too much of it? I think they are. Are they at risk of killing the golden goose? I absolutely think they are. But they're not doing it because they're like a bunch of. They're not sitting there in New York high and just throwing darts at a wall and going, sure, let's do another 5 events. There's financial reasons why they're doing exactly what they're doing.
Well, us comic nerds, we're not exactly very good at self-restraint, and that's the problem.
yeah. It's like the one allegory I like to kind of pitch every once in a while is they back a long time ago they used to do experiments with monkeys and cocaine, and the monkey would sit there and just smash the button like that to get as much of it as he possibly could until he passed out. And then he'd lay there for several hours. He'd wake up and he'd start smashing the button like crazy again until he passed out. And that's a lot of comic buyers out there like, oh, I like this, and they buy it until they're completely broke. They get saturated with it, and then they don't want it anymore. And then they take a little break, and then they go back and go crazy and go do it all over again. And that's what we're seeing is that. Unfortunately, though, Marvel keeps supplying that cocaine until the industry passes out and just hits saturation point, and then they do it all over again. And instead of kind of stretching it out, instead of trying to do a plan for longevity, they're just they're scrabbling for the money every single time. They're trying to get as much money as they possibly can as quickly as possible until the market collapses, and then they try it again.
This week there wasn't enough comics, and we're complaining that there's going to be too many comics. What's the happy medium, fellas? What's
somewhere
the perfect,
between those
what's
two?
The perfect?
Yeah,
medium is a medium.
Yeah, that's the medium.
It's
clear, Larry. It's clear.
Marvel, going from 0 to 100 titles a month is that there is a happy medium in there. But
maybe
look,
50.
There you go. Absolute Carnage sold really, really well. So when people are like, "Oh my God, why is Marvel doing another Carnage event? Why are we doing Knoll? Why another Venom event? I don't understand this." It's not a hard thing to figure out. It sold really well last year. It sold copies. That's why there's going to be another one, and a third one, and a fourth one, and a fifth one until eventually people do not buy them anymore, and then they'll go try to make a Deadpool event or whatever other character they're trying to push at the time, and that's the world we live in. There's a reason why Marvel went from one event every 4 years to an event a year to an event every twice a year to 4 times a year. They're going to do this until it does tip over, and they're willing to take some losses. Iron Man 2020 clearly did not do what they hoped it would do, but they're going to try again.
Yep.
But I like to ask a question. Do any of us believe or think that Marvel and DC understand why these things sell well?
No.
That is a great question. I don't think so. I think that the part of actually part of it they
DC
can
more
say,
than Marvel.
or they could say this artist, Greg Capullo, Scott Snyder sells books. We know that people like Capullo's artwork. We know that Snyder's kind of big concepts tend to work well for events. So that's a good team. Let's do more of that. I think you can. And I think Marvel gets that on some level. They know, Hickman can do this, and so let's give him an event. X-Men selling well. Let's maximize that. Give more people. I think they can put those things together. What I think that the part that I struggle with is War of the Realms is a great thing to look at because Aaron had been basically promoting and pushing that for years leading into it. Yeah, the Jane Foster first appearance of Thor had elements of that of War of the Realms in that book. I mean, he had been building a storyline forever, and the Avengers are hot with the movies and everything else. That on paper you could write it down and say this should work, and it clearly did not in terms of a big event. I mean, it's still sold. It's not like they've made money, but it was not the hit they thought it would be, and I do not think they have any idea why.
Well, part of that is something that I've said in the past. They're kind of like Hollywood in a regard to basically huffing their own farts. And what I mean by that is they believe that if they've made the choice to publish it, it is good. There is no degrees of good. If they make they don't ever think, well, maybe we made a mistake in making this.
Exactly.
They look at, if we hired somebody, they're just as good as the other people we hired. If we didn't hire them, they are bad. They believe that their act of doing something validates the quality of it, and therefore quality is not an issue.
Yeah, preach.
Yeah, that's kind of the way that they're looking at it. They see that, well, we made it, so it must be good. The assumption is if they produce it, it is good, instead of actually whether or not it is good.
So that's a concept in marketing they call is push versus pull marketing.
Yeah.
So that means basically Marvel and DC are just engaging in a lot of push marketing, as opposed to, I'll have to echo Pele's amen on that one. Yep.
Yeah. I think that's the major problem when they're pulling in the YA authors and stuff like that. They say, well, we gave them a shot, so they have to be amazing. No. No, it's not it at all.
Well, there's not the...
That's a smart marketing, I think. They're trying to pull in the YA authors.
But the YA customers aren't weekly or monthly floppy buyers, though, and they want to make them floppy buyers. I understand that, but they're graphic novel buyers. It's a different. It's the Scholastic that Scholastic will sell more, but that doesn't help me very much because I still have the same people coming into my shop every week.
I can see their thought process behind it, though. They're seeing somebody with this massive fan base, and I think it's a sound idea. It just hasn't paid off for them yet.
And I think that comes back to the fact that their marketing people are the D marketers or the D students of the marketing world. They don't know how to get the message out to those potential readers. Hey, come over here and read this stuff from the guy or girl that you liked on this other thing.
Yeah.
Automatically
they're going to look to their sources of where they get this other stuff from the YA author and say, "Where's this thing that she's doing over here? Oh, that's being sold at this comic shop down the street. Oh, that place. That's where the geeks go. I don't going to go there." And it's like, okay, fine.
Well, DC and Marvel have taken two different approaches with YA authors. DC is bringing in them, and they're making YA graphic novels tailored for that market, whereas Marvel is bringing in the YA authors, and they're putting them on monthly floppies. And you can see DC is having some pretty good success, whereas Marvel is absolutely flopping like a dead fish. There's nothing there because they're not targeting the market that would be interested in that writer. Because they think that they believe that their characters just sell on name alone.
Exactly. Well said.
Mm-hmm. And in some cases they do. Obviously, Batman. You could probably put me on that and people would buy it.
Yeah, it's like Gotham High.
I would buy that.
I mean, and it's like that's horrible. I mean, it's absolutely horrible. I mean, you get the diamond thing coming in. Oh, look at this. We've got this poster for Gotham High that you can put up in your shop. Yeah, but we don't sell Gotham High. That's Scholastic only. What are you doing here, Diamond?
And my local comic shop, Hyde Park, First Aid Comics over in Hyde Park, they do well with my daughter because they carry those. What's her name? Raina Telgemeier, the graphic novel. So she discovered Telgemeier. Thank you, Telgemeier. She discovered Smile through Scholastic, and then whenever I go to the comic store, she'll ask me to buy the next book in the series, but she's talking about that trade, that graphic novel. Maybe if there was a monthly of that same kind of thing, she might be interested in that, but she definitely would go more for the graphic novel than the floppy. But it's not necessarily going to turn her into a consumer of the other floppy books for a number of reasons. So I think this came up in our last discussion, and I agree with Doc. It's like, and even Perch made this point in one of his videos, which is that we need people in the industry who know enough about the industry to be competent at it, to have at least some level of core competency, but also know and want to make money. And I think that's even when we talk about the editorial piece, it's like you need good editors to basically produce the kind of books that people are going to not only buy themselves, but say, hey, yo, you got to check this out. But it seems like there's this sort of business experience or this business thinking that's largely absent from the industry. I was watching the IDW video that Perch and Wes did last night, and just talking about this book Kill Lock, which you guys are absolutely right. Until I heard you guys talk about Kill Lock on that video, never heard of it. They probably never would have heard of it. Wouldn't have gotten an email, a social media post, nothing. And I haven't got any of that stuff. So it's this big disconnect in terms of the creativity in comics and what's going on in the actual business of it. But in terms of Marvel and DC, it doesn't seem like anytime soon they're going to reach out to their customers and say, hey, guys, what are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? And what can improve? And they don't have to when we keep buying everything. So is that a catch-22? I think that might be a catch-22, but that's what it feels like.
So I do want to say thank you very much to Cliff Elor for the $14.99 super chat. Had to show love for the show. Much appreciated for the substantive conversation. Always needed. Thank you very much, and thank you everybody for being really engaged in the comments section or in the live comments. We really appreciate it. Everyone's having a great conversation over there. If you're enjoying the conversation as much as Cliff Elor, please give us a thumbs up, like the video, and tell your friends about us, and we'll keep trying to bring the most substantive comic book conversations you can find on YouTube, right here on Thinking Critical. Back to you guys, and I want to hear you argue some more.
One thing I want to kind of go ahead, Larry.
Okay, in terms of the comic companies getting the D-level marketing guys, I think the DC young adult novel line is one of the most cunning marketing techniques, because we're mining the future is what I think they're doing. They've created a product to go into Scholastic and to turn new readers into comic book readers. And the payoff, what I'm assuming, is when these guys are starting to read comics, starting to read DC characters, at some point they're going to come seeking us out, because they're sowing seeds for the future with that line. That's a line that sells okay in the store. You might sell a handful if you have a young readers section, but that line is created for Scholastic and schools and the book market. That line is created to create new readers. So I'm interested to see if it pays off in the future.
And I think Larry's absolutely right. I think that's a bright spot. That to me, whoever is responsible.
But that's next level marketing. That's not D-level marketing. That's smart stuff.
I'm agreeing with you. That's a long-term investment. That's you realize this is a sales channel into the schools for your kind of product, Let them absorb it this way. At some point, they get older. They get a job. They turn 20. They turn 21, 25. They got disposable income. Yeah, that Batman book I used to read all the way back in the day. I wonder if there's anything else like that. And then they find themselves their way into a store. I think we all agree that Marvel's not doing that with their approach. They're doing what we call the ass backwards approach, which is you bring in the YA off to put them on a monthly. The people who are interested in that are not going to consume the monthly.
They're just missing one mechanic, one piece of that puzzle. They're missing. Marvel should be marketing that young A author to the young A crowd. They're marketing that young A author to the shill media, to Newsarama, to comic book resources, to where the existing customer bases. They should be taking that young A author that's on a Marvel title and advertising it outside of the comic book industry.
So then
into the comic industry.
So then the question, Larry, is
one little mechanic.
That's okay. So the question, Larry, is if I, as a consumer, you as a retailer, and somebody over at DC can figure out what's Marvel's problem. What is it that's going on at Marvel that they would do the exact opposite that anybody else, apparently from the inside or outside, can figure this out?
Marvel is trying to change existing comic buyers, the people that have been buying for 20, 30, 40 years, into liking that type of content, those types of comics, and they don't. They just don't like it. They don't like those creators. They want their more heroic stories with more traditional types of heroes. That's what they want, and they're not going to change what they buy. And it makes them angry, and then those creators start attacking people on social media for not buying that stuff. And and they're just keep pushing and pushing and pushing, saying that, oh, this is what we have. You're going to like it. No, we don't like that. That's not what we want. And it keeps going round and round in circles.
Marvel's approach has essentially been to take a bunch of different things that different people like, and then mix them into a pot and wonder why they get garbage out. It'd be like, I really like chocolate. I also like garlic. Sometimes I like curry. Let's put them all together. No, it's going to be awful.
Exactly.
Sounds delicious.
I've said for years that Marvel seems to be a nest, just a nest of people who are too complacent in their jobs. That's a company that needs a shakeup, and I can't put my finger on who has to go, but somebody that is a real nasty seed who's holds some power at Marvel, who just allows so much laziness and complacency.
Marvel thinks that the people that write for Newsarama, that write for the
Comics Alliance,
CBR, comicbook.com,
it's part of the show media network.
They think that the activists are the comic buyers, and they're not. They are not. Yeah, you can get a whole bunch of really great reviews.
That's their promotional scheme. They have deals. That's the Old Boy Network. We're doing a book. We send out our press release to Newsarama.
Hold on.
Gives it a positive review.
And they get the positive reviews. They get the spin. They get all this stuff. But the problem is, those aren't the comic buyers. Those are not the comic buyers. The comic buyers are the people that like the older stories, like the traditional angles. That's the people that spend the money at the comic shops. And okay, great, you won awards, wonderful, pat yourselves on the back, and you did a great job this year, except for you didn't, you're not making money doing this kind of stuff. You're making money with the traditional offerings.
I mean,
it's Marvel's job to seek out new customer bases, but to do that, they don't have to alienate the existing loyal customer base that exists right now. In general, in comic shops, there's 100,000 fans who buy comic books right now. To seek out new markets, you don't have to alienate the people who exist now.
Yes, and it seems like what Marvel's been doing is instead of trying to convert Raina Telgemeier fans into Marvel fans, they're trying to, the way that they've been doing it, the only possible outcome would be converting Marvel fans into Raina Telgemeier fans. Not
their mechanic is just off by one little segment, and there's nobody at Marvel there's no one at Marvel who can recognize that and do a course correction. It's ridiculous.
Well, yes,
because that means
that would require.
Yeah, but that means that's a political will issue. That's a political will issue. That means, like you said, Larry, that means there is a seed in there someplace who's just determined to do this despite all the data that speaks otherwise.
Let's have some balls here. Who's the bad seed? Tom Brevoort. Tom Brevoort, bad seed. I'll say. Who do you guys think's the bad seed?
Sauna Amanat.
All right, guys, we're gonna have to hold up for 1 second. I do want to say thank you very much to Alfonso Ontiveros. I'm not sure what MX is. It might. I can't remember which denomination that is.
It's probably Mexican.
Mexican pesos?
Yeah.
Maybe Mexican pesos. Parents want their kids reading books, not comics. I have seen that and lived. Teens fall for manga and video games. What do you think about that one?
That's true. If you've ever been to a Scholastic book fair, the people selling the books are like rock stars. Parents want their kids reading books.
Mm-hmm. Hirsch, do you have that problem in the Great Northwest? Because I'm trying to teach my son to read with comic books.
Yeah, I mean, this is a tech area, so I mean, most parents have started to give up the fight, and they're trying to get people to learn on tablets. So, but yeah, I mean, people like books. I mean, definitely, parents want their kids reading books. The comic shops or publishers, they're not marketing comics at that audience well. The Scholastic effort, I think, has been maybe a bit of a trap for the big publishers because Scholastic handles a lot of this stuff. If you're a publisher, you can put some graphic novels in that direction, and then they take it from there. They do the marketing for you. They put it in the paper. And what it did is, I don't think
it has to be a huge income.
It's not. No, it's really not. It's not. So the problem is that the publishers never learned how to talk to this audience. They put books out and they let Scholastic take care of fulfillment and everything else. So now Marvel and DC and others are trying to figure out how do we reach this audience, and they don't know. So they're going out and they're like, well, here's a young YA author that somebody in our network kind of knows. Let's bring them in the house. Let's give them a book, and we'll put them through the same channels. But they never learn any of the lessons that Scholastic knows, which is why Scholastic is successful. None of that skill and that talent exists within Marvel and DC to actually talk to this market. And that has a lot more to do with actually just producing the books. It's how you're gonna advertise them, how you're gonna market it, how you're gonna what time of year you're gonna put it out, what channel you're gonna go out to. None of that stuff exists within
compared to what comics sell for. Those Scholastic books are pennies on the dollar. I mean, for bang for buck, sure. what you get for money. I saw a Squirrel Girl graphic novel, Scholastic, retailed for $9.99, and that would be an omnibus in my shop that would sell for $60-$70.
Not only that, they don't pay the publishers almost anything for these books.
Exactly.
And they have a very limited amount.
Yep.
And the challenge is, if you are running a comic shop and you're trying to get this audience, you have parents with kids getting Scholastic things in the schools. They go to Target, they see Raina Telgemeier books there on the shelves. I'll often advertise it in caps very, very effectively. Kids are getting in there. And so now we're going to route them to shops. And kids naturally want to go see more about comics. They see the Avengers movie on there. They see the marketing. They see Captain Marvel market. Whatever it happens to be, kids are interested in going to get more comics. But when you walk into that comic store and it's like, here's $18.95, it's for a story that was written for adults, not for kids. It's a collision on all different fronts. And then the big publishers are like, well, why aren't we succeeding more in this market? You haven't hired anybody to really tackle this market. You're not trying. As long as you're not trying, it's not going to happen.
Well, they're trying.
I don't think comic shops being an entry point for those customers at a later point in life is terrible.
It's not.
It's not terrible at all. It's good.
I like creating new comic readers through Scholastic. I love that mechanic. We will get those customers at some point, and I don't care if the product in our stores is for a higher age group, because we're going to be getting them at the entry point's going to be higher.
I just don't think that's the problem. I don't think you're going to actually. I think there's a missing step too. You got kids who are coming into Scholastic and they're getting these books and they're getting immersed in this stuff and they're getting trained into a certain type of book, and then their interest is going to want to go a certain direction. And the comic shop today is not well equipped to then take this audience at an older life. They tend to go other places.
But I'm gonna jump in on this one.
There's plenty of material that they can jump
into. But part of this is And I would point to Lego's strategy in terms of how they became this juggernaut when they engaged in, whether it was formally, informally, this whole Lego ambassadors kind of initiative. So the real key to when you have a kid who maybe starts on a book, because one thing that happened was the whole STEM thing happened, science, technology, engineering, and math. And everybody basically said the only way that your kid can be successful at this and successful in life is reading comprehension. So everybody, all of a sudden, everybody wanted their kids reading books. It became, whether it was before, it became amplified. But what you need to make that transition from that Scholastic into a local comic shop, you need the cool uncle, you need the cool dad, you need the cool cousin. Those people who are reading comics who are saying, hey, if you like that, you'll like this. Yep. Keep that habit going as the gateway. And then when they say, okay, now I don't have to rely on, when I get money, I don't have to rely on cool uncle, cool dad, or cool cousin to be engaged in this hobby. Marvel and DC do not leverage their current fans, consumers, or whatever it is in a way to keep that chain going. I don't know if they understand it. I don't know if they've even bothered to look at it. I don't think they have. And the only reason I use this the only reason I say this is because I thank Wes and so many other people for explaining to me how Diamond got to be in the state that it is today. And for Steve Jeppy for being honest in the interview that he gave. That dude was sitting for what, like 25 years, guys, as the distributor of this industry. And it sounds like complacency was his energy during that entire time. Did nothing to innovate from what I've heard from people, did nothing to improvise, did nothing to grow. I have not heard one in the 25 years since the great collapse happened back in 95. I have heard him do nothing to improve the very area of comics that he had locked up. And it just feels like maybe with DC with some glowing exceptions, I don't hear from the industry as a whole what anybody is doing to move it forward because the interest is there. People want to read. Superheroes are a legit genre now, right alongside everything else. The whole point of
read a little more into Diamond, buddy.
Okay, I'll read more into Diamond.
The way that I look upon it is I think Diamond grew too fast. Diamond was, a distributor, a family-owned distributor with all employees that you knew that all of a sudden acquired gaming companies and became toy manufacturers, bought supply companies, and then became impersonable with too many warehouses and too many people and no real face. Diamond, in my opinion, had growing pains. They didn't really innovate with distributing comic books, but they don't have to change the industry. They puts the comics in the box and they ships the comics. They're a distributor. They're not responsible for content and changing things in the industry.
But they influence
a 30-year track record with me.
They're a part of trade. They're a part of the chain.
Fine.
They're not all of it. I do think people blame Diamond for a bunch of things. The publishers or the retailers, frankly, are responsible.
Or even the delivery company.
But they're a middle part. They're a part of this chain, and I know you've had a better time with Diamond than others have, and I'm glad for you. You've been lucky.
We've had to work out our problems. 15 years ago when we were all getting destroyed books, we developed from the Plattsburgh warehouse.
Still get destroyed books.
Coming, no, we
You do.
We maintain a
you do.
Point. We created that. We
I'm
realized the double diamond box for UPS doesn't work. A corner gets smashed on a double diamond box almost every time. That's 25% of the books. If that thing is full, it's too heavy to go through Diamond.
And I'm glad that you've I'm honestly glad. I think how you solve this problem is something that I wish other people would take and learn from. It would give everybody a lot of happiness. That would be great. And I think I applaud you for being proactive to solve your issue. I think that's good. At the same time, I also think Diamond, as a major part of this chain and as the sole distributor, it should not be just you just having to figure it out for yourself on how to solve this. They are a part of the chain. They did have some responsibility here, and they have neglected, by and large, their role in this industry. They've been willing to just let things continue the way they've been. And some people have figured it out, good for you. Some people have not. Some people are not able to. There's some people, I know many retailers who have banged their head against the wall over and over and over to make it better, and still it gets screwed up. They get a new rep just mysteriously out of the woodwork one day who resets them back to zero. It's not a great system.
They got too big too fast.
Yeah, and if they didn't manage the growth well, that's still on them to manage the growth well with support, with feedback, with insight from those who are their customers. I mean, even with Marvel, when they made the switch to basically making the movies, the whole point of making the movies was that, okay, yeah, you're going to make money off the movies, absolutely. But the overriding goal, if the comics war book is to be believed, was that the movies would help to promote the properties in such a way that would be all about increasing sales and licensing, increasing sales and merchandising. And I don't know if comics just got left out of that. But it definitely was to increase the sales and licensing and merchandising. And I just don't understand why that they didn't felt that also extended to comic books as well.
I honestly don't understand that either. When the Spider-Verse the movie can make $190 million profit, and you can't somehow negotiate in there for an ad for comic books is mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, and that's partially on Diamond.
It has nothing to do with Diamond.
No.
It is. They should have been blasting it in Previews magazine. They didn't.
Blasting what?
No. What I mean is
the titles that are in the new Marvel movies.
I understand that, but no, I'm talking about advertising their goddamn locator service. They have a whole service that they don't even push. They stick it in the actual comics. That's like, here, the thing that you found, the thing you're already reading, that you know where to get. Here's
why doesn't Marvel have a locator service?
Because
why doesn't DC have a locator service? It's their product.
They should.
Guys, the problem here is that there is no job. There is nobody here who's really saying, I'm going to make this radically better. In many cases, if you talk to people, Marvel will say, well, DC sucks. DC will say Diamond sucks. Diamond will say these guys suck. Everybody else is waiting for somebody else to solve this problem. One big issue we have in comics is there's not an individual who stood up and said, you know what, I'm going to make us all millionaires. We're doing it. We're doing it right now. This is what's happening. I'm in charge, and the buck stops here. We're doing it. And with comics, we always get into this period where it's always somebody else who's fucked it up, and never it's like, it's not me. We've got to have some accountability. Otherwise we're just pissing around for scraps.
We got the comic industry's strength is also its weakness. The comic book, the direct market is 1,200 independently owned stores with individual voices. They collectively don't have a single voice. But their strength is their small independent stores where people will go into and they feel as if they discover something at the grassroots level. You're not going into a big box store. There's something magical about the small discovering a book in a comic book shop is more impactful, in my opinion, than discovering it at Walmart or.
Yeah, I mean, but I love the feels of it, but I mean, it's not magical. It's making most of us live close to broke. I do not make my money off comics. I don't. I have to have other jobs to make my money. That's the story of so many people. At least up here, the vast majority, all with the exception of one shop, everyone's getting money from somewhere else. Because they have
new comics are
I hear you there.
Extravagance. They're an add-on. They're something that I do as a special service, that I offer to my existing vintage and collectible comics buyers, because they also buy new comics too. It's like a completely different industry. It's a completely different, part of the shop. Those people don't buy new comics very often. The ones that do, I sell them new comics so they can complete the hobby. But if I didn't have that other part of the shop, new comics wouldn't exist for me, because it's just that way. They don't make enough money.
And that's the thing. In the research we've been doing for Amity Concepts to come into it, the question that came up over and over again with retailers, and I put it this way: the question of the 21st century for comics is, how do you sell these floppies? How do you sell these floppies? How do you make money off these floppies, if at all? How do you do it? And other than just other than a wider distribution footprint, which just means you have more people discovering it, sampling with a better price. It's just with 1,200, 1,500 shops, if purchase right about that, shrink it by 25%, that problem is only going to exponentially get exasperated.
Yeah.
It's just
So I do want to say
we need more industry leaders than market leaders.
I want to say thank you to Bronze Age Byron for the $5 super chat. Best morning discussion ever. And I do agree. And if you agree with Bronze Age Byron, give us a thumbs up and like this video. I only wish someone from DC and Marvel had their ear to the ground for all this. Well, the good news is I do have word that there are a few people from DC, I don't know about Marvel, who actually do watch the channel and do watch these discussions. So this likely will be viewed, at least in part, by someone from DC.
Mm-hmm.
I know some DC creators that are watching it right now.
Yeah.
Hi, fellas.
Hey guys. No, but I mean, I guess
for the G marketers, we love you.
Indiegogo.
I guess for my issue with it is there's rarely any initiative put forth, and I don't mean an individual initiative. I mean that overall feeling of initiative, of hey, we have something that works now. Can we make it better? Can we do it better? Can we do it cheaper? But without sacrificing quality? There's rarely that anybody in the industry willing to do that, willing to rock the boat, because you know what? It's going to put a couple of people out of work. It's going to change the way other people have to do something. It might have to require some capital investment on other people's parts.
Yep.
And there's rarely those people that really show initiative in this industry to see a problem, recognize a problem, and do what they can to fix the problem before it becomes a nightmare.
Yeah.
And you don't have that in this
I think you're seeing that. I think you're seeing it right now. DC is
trying
expanded their distributor base.
Yes.
DC's did a digital catalog,
but
DC
it's still
is their reverse young A authors to the Scholastic to pull people in. I think they're a great example of a publisher who's doing stuff. How about Boom? Boom this week just gave us a James Tynion title that wasn't solicited in previews. They broke up a hardcover and they're releasing it in comic book form at a time when we need our Sunday punch. They're giving us a James Tynion book on FOC this week. I think that publishers are trying. I think they're starting scrappy and trying to innovate right now.
Well, they're trying to now with their back is completely against the wall.
Yeah.
I mean, they either try or they die.
Okay.
And it should have happened before this.
We can't fix what happened in the past. Let's move forward.
No, we cannot. But my hope is that this was their wake-up call to recognize, hey, we can be these people again. We can initiate it.
Guys, my phone's on 1%. I'm ready to go out, so I might just...
Sorry, Larry.
And I'm sorry.
Thank you, Larry.
I know that'll
be sad. For your time, dude.
Take it easy.
This is very lively today. So I do want to say, while we have a little time, thank you very much to Kenneth Dowling for the $5 super chat. Hi, panel, just hopping on. I'm glad Marvel is jumping to get comics out like DC, despite my reservations. Kenneth, you are going to love this conversation. We have been going at it tooth and nail. It's basically been like the Thunderdome, but for comic books in here. And you're going to enjoy the entire replay. I can guarantee you that. And thank you for being very generous in supporting the channel.
Yeah, so I like to ask this question. I like to ask this question of everybody just real quick.
Okay.
Because most of my life has been as a consumer on the outside. I did get to work at Milestone Media for DC for about 2 years, so I have that experience, and then being back on the outside again. But it just seems like you have publishers, distributor, retailers. Let's leave the readers to the side, and everyone's part of this industry, this sort of supply chain to get this product that all of us readers love to that. And it almost seems like it's like not so much that those three sectors see each other as competition, but it's that they just almost have a disdain for one another in a sense. And where does that come from? Where does that originate from? To the point where none of those three groups are in some ways not realizing we're all in the same boat trying to get this product to these people over here.
Well, you've got one group that hates money, but they realize that they have to have money to make whatever they want, actually work. Then you've got another group that absolutely adores money, but they hate the creative side of it, and they don't really want to do anything other than the bare minimum to make that money. And then you've got the third group who see money as, okay, that's all right, but I really love what I'm doing, and I really want to sell this product, and I really want to get it out there for the people who love it. The problem is everybody hates the third group because they call them, and they call them names and stuff like that, and try to kick them out of the industry and try to poison them. So it's just, those three just kind of like, just take turns just kind of smacking each other around, and nobody gets anywhere.
Nobody knows how to play nice with each other.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's just a bunch of people that feel like, well, the industry would be better if this part of it didn't exist. And they don't want to get over that petty, childish nonsense long enough.
Mean girls,
yes,
kind of thing.
Just to go to work. Look, I don't like everybody that I work with, but I can work with them.
Yep. Yeah, I don't tell you what.
Yeah.
I've got customers. I've got customers that I don't agree with anything that they have. They're into politically. I've got customers that are are the opposite, believe the opposite of me in almost every single ideological way, but we love comics. And we both respect each other's love for comics and the love for the art form. And the problem is it's gotten so antagonistic between the groups in the professional level that they actively want to kill the others, at least in a social media sense, to the point where comics have been completely thrown to the side so that they can try to smash each other to pieces. And it's just, you don't get anywhere like that.
All right, guys. So we're gonna have to start winding down. I'm sorry, guys. This has been a heated panel. We've had a lot of great discussion, but I do want to give Perch the opportunity to plug his interview with Sean Gordon Murphy. What did you talk about? Why should people go to your channel and check this out if they haven't viewed it already, Perch?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, you should go check it out. Not for my sake, but for his. He's very open. He talks in depth and doesn't pull any punches. Not in a mean way, not in an angry way, but just he will tell you about kind of his work, how he got to comics, how he pulled himself up from kind of struggles in the industry, from being very poor and trying to make his way in to being kind of a huge showrunner and being responsible for a lot of people. He talks about, from his perspective, what is the industry needs and where it struggles and why there are problems. And a lot of the topics we're talking about right now, like why is there a kind of a stigma against making money in some cases, or is there one? And I think it's a fascinating look from him. He was great. I'm always very thankful when creators will come on. He give me an hour and a half of his time just for the recorded part of the interview. And that was that's just a lot of great time. He's taking money away from himself when he could be drawing and creating to talk to us. And so it's definitely worth checking out. Please do. Just like the Brett Booth, the Brian Edward Hill interviews. I mean, you'll learn a lot from it. So I definitely check it out. And his book, The Plot Holes, I will say, regardless whether I talk to him or not, he's got a really clever hook. I think it's going to be a really fun title. And he's doing something with it that I think is super smart. First of all, you can get in for a really cheap price, $10, 122 pages of comic. That's a lot of comic for $10.
A lot of value.
A lot of value. And he's going to do something kind of cool. So when the comic is done, when the digital is ready, the pages are assembled, you'll get it. So you're going to get that, it sounds like this year. And then it will go to the printers, it'll get printed, and then you'll get your physical book maybe a couple months later, but you're not having to wait. So when the material's ready, you're getting it. And I think that's really clever, and I think it's a great option, and he's a great guy. I would definitely check it out.
Yeah, it's a must-watch interview. Must-watch. Yep.
Definitely do that. And I want to say, if you like all the people on the panel right here, they're all going to be on the channel within the next few days. Gervain and I are going to have a very interesting conversation. I don't even want to let the cat out of the bag on that one. Doc and I are you'll be seeing Geekspan tonight at, I believe it should be 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Pele is going to be on the channel talking about grading comics and using
CGC
eBay to buy
discussion.
comics.
Yeah.
Yes, stuff like that. And then, of course, Perch is on the channel for a couple of interviews. We're going to talk about the new state of comics and the new market moving forward. And then we also talk about the worst decisions in comic book history with my man, Yule Carter from Fantastic Comics. And so you're definitely going to be checking those out. I do want to say thank you very much to Kenneth Dowling for the $5 super chat. I understand you're wrapping up. I wanted to wish you all happy Memorial Day. Have a wonderful comics news, and I will share next weekend. Oh, I have wonderful comic news. I will share next weekend piece.
Thanks,
well,
Kenneth.
we can't wait to hear it. Thank you very much for supporting the channel. You've been a huge supporter for us. Thank you very much. And yes, Yule Carter, that would be him right there. He was also on there with Perch. So we got great stuff coming up for you in the next few days. Pele, do you have anything to say before we wrap this up?
Oh, I just want everybody to know that we love you guys. We really look forward to these Saturday conversations every week. And all you guys that show up and have these energetic conversations in the chat, and you have all these questions and everything like that, feel free to hit us up with those during the week, and we can carry these conversations over on the Twitters and the Instagrams, and or you can get stuff ready for the weekly conversation. You know, ask us questions. We can probably touch on it during the conversations here, and let's carry this forward. We can keep this going as a community, and it's awesome. And the greater our passion for comics grows, the more likely the industry is to see it and come to us for ideas, and that's a great thing. Great thing.
Amen, brother. Amen.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So I want to say thank you to Club Cosplay, the Nerds Nightclub, for the $2 super chat. Thanks, guys. No, thank you for being a wonderful viewer, being lively in the chats, and being respectful to everyone. Great discussions as always. Doc, do you have anything to say before we wrap this up?
I just love, you know what? I love the way that this panel's been going recently with, not everybody agreeing, but us having good heated discussions. Nobody's getting mad.
Yep.
It's kind of awesome. And, wash your ass.
You can disagree without hating each other. You can disagree without hating each other.
Yep. Disagree, but don't disown.
All right. So Gervain is quickly becoming like the most popular guy on the channel. Soon people are going to be voting me off the island, and it'll be your channel. But until that happens,
don't put that heat on me. Don't put that heat on me. But I just want to say, my wife will tell you, I love to talk. So this is in many ways a mini dream come true, and I agree 1,000% with Pele. It's great to be able to argue with a bunch of guys, let the temperature get up a little bit high, but not too high, and basically just talk about this industry and this product and this experience that we all love. It's like, I think if we all get on the same page, whether it's from corporate to the community, there's a lot of growth to be had, because there are a lot of people who still love comics and just don't know it yet.
Absolutely. That might be part of what our discussion is.
Yep.
All right, Perch. So you were last but not least, one of my partners in crime, definitely my most frequent collaborator now. We talk a lot about comic books. You took a bit of a back seat today, let everyone else argue it out, jumped in a little bit. You got anything to say before you wrap it up?
No, it's fun talking to everybody. I want everybody to have a chance to hear. I mean, I can, as you know, I can talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. So I need to make sure I'm putting in those breaks to shut up for a while and let other people have some airtime. So I'm just glad to be able to chat with all of you, and we see where things go. Clearly, there's some difference of opinions. I'll go more heated next time. We put on rage mode, do a heel turn, and let's try that.
Absolutely. I'm gonna have to go NWO Black.
Yes,
there you go.
Uh-oh. I'm gonna have to break out a steel chair.
Just not Wolfpack. Just not Wolfpack.
No Wolfpack. All right, everybody. Thank you very much. We had a great discussion, and if you just jumped in at the end, you're definitely going to want to watch the beginning. This was one of the better panels we ever had. Salamapo, wash your asses, and I'm out.
Later, y'all.
Bye, y'all.